Hello there. Welcome to the Phoenix Rising podcast. I am Ashley Drummond. If this is your first time here, I am so glad that you found this podcast and are joining me in this conversation. You're going to find a lot of stuff around fitness, around mindset, inspiration, and motivation, really to just help inspire you and connect you deeper to yourself so that you can create the life that you want. If you are returning and have been listening to this podcast for a very long time, I just want to say thank you so much. And I am so glad you showed up again this week to join me on this conversation as well, because like usual, we're going to get deep and we're going to talk about some interesting stuff that's going to get your wheels turning, but really just to help you in your own life. You're going to hear me mention in this episode about things with guided meditation and goal setting and getting clear on your belief system to create the life that you want in reference to the 8-week boot camp. And that will be opening back up very soon. I have a lot of people that are finishing out their 8-week transformation. So if you would like to be a part of the next one that opens up, please head to my website, ashleydrummonds.com. Anywhere on there, you will see the option to join the newsletter in the community. If you do that, I'll end up sending you like a free workout, a free mindset coaching video, and all kinds of good stuff. But that is where you will find out when you have the opportunity to sign up for the next opening for the 8-week boot camp. Again, that is at ashleydrummonds.com. Head on over there and get signed up. And now we'll get into today's episode, which is all about what you focus on expands, along with some fun topics around mind to mind, aka telepathic communication, how to really see the silver lining in any area of your life, and using your vibrational energy to match up with what it is that you want to create. So grab your tea, grab your coffee, your protein shake, anything else that is your normal beverage choice, and let's get to it. Good morning. I hope that your day is starting off wonderful. Man, so I woke up at 4:45 this morning, and you're probably like, why in the world did you wake up at 4:45 this morning? It was not my choice. It was my brain's choice. And I thought it was like 6:30, and I woke up and I got up to go pee because that's what you do when you wake up in the morning. And I looked at the clock and saw that it said 4:45, and I did a double take. I was like, all right, well, here we are today. So I say all that because it is not even 8 o'clock, and I am charged and wired and ready to go to talk to you in today's podcast episode. It's interesting because I know exactly why I woke up at 4:45, because obviously I'm a very high energy person, but not just physically, mentally too. And yesterday I did an awesome workout and really expressed a lot of that physical energy, but I'm not even going to lie. Mentally, I wasn't super productive. So when I went to bed with the intention of knowing like, man, I got to get out this week's podcast episode. And always, every time I set that intention, it's like the universe is like, oh, you do? Okay, well, here you go. How about we're going to download an hour's worth of content for you and wake you up at 4:45 so you can get your pen and paper and write it all out and talk to people about this stuff. So you can thank the universe for giving you this energy and this information, because I am ready to go and excited to talk to you about what you focus on you create, but also super cool things like telepathic communication and connecting with people across the world and your own vibrational energy. And a lot of this stuff isn't really anything new that we haven't already talked about. It's just a different part of, everything, your mindset, your thoughts, your own energy fields, the people you surround yourself with, and all that good stuff. So we're going to start with just really talking about how what you focus on expands. And the idea behind this is where your energy goes, your world goes, where your intention goes, your thoughts go. Everything is just kind of following your leadership. And so an example of this would be, Have you ever noticed throughout the day, let's say you have one bad experience or one bad thought, and I don't even like using the word bad because there is no good and bad, it just is. But you have experiences that make you feel good and then other experiences that make you feel bad, which is why I'm using that as the descriptor. But have you ever noticed where you'll have one thing and that one thing can create a rabbit trail of other things that match that vibration? So you have one thought, you're worried about, I don't know, you're worried about your job, you're worried about money, you're worried about your mom, your dad, your relationship, your health, whatever. And it can start as just like one little thing. But the thing is, the more you focus on that one thought, next thing you know, now you're not just worried about that one thing. Now you're also worried about your entire life and you've totally lost your momentum throughout the day. And it just, your whole day goes down the drain. And sometimes this can go on for weeks. Sometimes it can go on for months, and sometimes it creates a new habitual pattern that you end up getting stuck in. The reason behind this is simply because it's no different than nature and anything else in life, that what you focus on will expand. So where you place your attention, you also place your vibration. And I like using the analogy of love and relationships and even anything new. Actually, you could use this for a new job too. In the very beginning, what happens is you're on like this high. People get on this high in a new job because all they can focus on is all the incredible opportunities and possibilities that this new thing is going to bring them. Oh my God, I'm going to make more money. I'm going to have better coworkers. I'm going to have more freedom and flexibility. This is going to be the answer. I'm going to get out of this miserable situation, all these things. And what happens is you switch over to that new job and you do have that experience at first. But as time goes on, if you have not learned the way that your mind and your life and your reality works, that what you focus on is what you create, then you're going to end up after a certain period of time in the exact same situation that you were in with the previous job. Because over time, you will stop focusing on all the wonderful things and the possibilities. And instead, you will start now focusing on the lack of what is missing from that job for you. Now, a couple things before I continue with that. That does not mean that you stay in a job or home or any situation that you feel like you have outgrown, because intuitively, you know when you've moved on. There's two different things here. There's a difference between moving into something new from the vibration and the intention of growth and wanting to do more and be more. And there is a difference between moving out of something from a place of lack, out of frustration, out of not enough, out of all these things. They're two very different energies. So when you're going through transitions and coming out of things in your life, intuitively, and all intuitive means is just trust your gut. You know when you're moving from a place of escape and when you're moving from a place of creation. They hold very different energy fields. And again, I do my best to break this down with giving you guys examples, because sometimes I can get very caught up in thinking like, oh, everybody knows about quantum physics and laws of the universe and mindset and thoughts become things and multiple realities and all this stuff. And then it's like, wait a minute, how does this work? So I break it down just to make it as applicable to your own life. But so an example in figuring out whether you're moving in and out of something from a place of escape and a place of creation is, one, you got to pay attention to how you feel. The direction that you're moving, does it excite you? Does it inspire you? Does it open up your mind and open up your world to basically the feeling of expansion? That's the best way I can describe it, is when you're moving in the energy of creation of what you want and creating a new reality and high vibration, you feel the energy of expansion. It feels like you're growing. When you're moving in the energy of escapism and from lack, it almost feels more like you're constricted. And it's not necessarily that you're growing as much as you just feel like so uncomfortable to the point of like frustration, depression, your energy feels low. It's a very different thing. And it's the people who are working the 9 to 5, living for the weekends. Friday night rolls around. What's the first thing they're going to do is like, let's go out. Let's do this. It's like, yeah, I don't really want to do that because all we're doing is escaping the week every single weekend. And I'm not really living for the weekend. I want a life that I'm not trying to escape. And that's the intention that I'm going in. So hopefully that kind of helps you gauge things. You can also figure out which energy you're shifting from by paying attention to how you talk about transitions. If you're talking about everything your current reality isn't and doesn't have, more than likely you're moving from a place of escape and low vibration. If you're talking about everything you want and everything that excites you and everything that you're looking forward to, then you're definitely moving to the energy of creation. So the hard part about this is when you do feel yourself in a movement phase, it's how do you feel what you're going through while also intentionally creating what you do want. And a lot of this is really knowing yourself and spending time with yourself and knowing your intention and what is going on with you. Because obviously, like the first thing that comes up especially when I talk to clients and I'm like, look, you need to focus on what it is that you do want. Everything you've been talking about is what you don't want and what you're afraid of and what stresses you out and what worries you. And all that does is create more of that. So it doesn't mean that you deny it, especially if you're going through like a painful experience or a really hard struggle. That is 100% your reality and it's very real. So it would not be healthy for you to deny that and pretend that you're not going through that. But there is a silver lining in everything, and what you choose to focus on is up to you. And an example of this would be like, if I think back, so a lot of people have asked this. I don't know if it's the season or what, but a lot of people are having divorce and breakups. It's just, I don't know why. It just is what it is right now. And so a lot of people have asked, like, how did you get through a divorce when you were so young and not lose your mind? And like, how does it feel like, how did you ever feel like it was eventually going to end and you were going to move forward? How did you deal with the pain? All these questions that have come up, and use this in relation to whatever you're going through. Might not be a relationship. It might be a job. It might be a place you live. It might be friendships. It doesn't really matter. And take it, as always, whatever is truth for you, let that resonate, and everything else, you let it go, because it's only truth if you experience and feel it as truth. But so back to the point. So when I was going through this, like, let's just be real. Anytime there's an ending of anything, it's a very painful experience because it's an ending of the life you have been living and everything you identified yourself with. I think that's the hardest part when people go through endings, is it's not necessarily the sadness of the loss of what is ending. It's more of the experience you're having of the loss and the ending of the memories, the life, and the part of you that exists from that situation, and no longer having that as part of your identity. I think that that's what causes us the most pain, is it feels like we're losing a part of ourselves, because we're letting go of a person that we used to be and we no longer are. Again, like I said, this could be just a job you had. It could be a relationship. So that's what makes it painful. So when you're going through this, how do you focus on what you do want while also not being in denial of what you're going through? The way that I did this, and this takes so much practice, granted. I mean, I think now that I'm thinking back, I think I was like 21, so I was young, but I had already spent like 2 to 3 years just really learning and studying the power of the mind, the subconscious mind, how your thoughts work on a physiological perspective, but also on a spiritual perspective. And I had been working through this stuff already to help deal with a lot of the anxiety I was going through, the panic attacks, like just trying to fix that problem so I didn't have it anymore. So I already had a basic understanding of how life worked. So in going through this, I like to think of it like a water hose, in that it's not that you put a kink in the hose to stop the flow of the emotions that you're experiencing, because all that does is create a deeper problem. And then it just blocks everything till eventually that hose is going to just get stuck and explode. And now you have a mess and flood of water, AKA a mess and flood of emotions. So instead, if you use that analogy, you can process the emotions and feel them because you are experiencing something that needs to be felt. However, as you feel them, you can choose to focus on everything that you are creating and everything that is possible from it. So actually, about a year later, after I had gone through this experience, I had a very good friend that was going through the same thing. And I mean, literally, this was our conversation. She's like, "How did you even get through this?" Like, I'm devastated, I'm heartbroken and all that. And I didn't know what I did for her in our friendship at the time. Looking back, it makes total sense because all I kept telling her was, well, think about like how much freedom you have now, and not freedom like, woohoo, I'm single, freedom to really discover yourself. And now you can do whatever you want in life, meaning like you can try a new job, you can try a new hobby, you can try a new area to live, you can explore this new part of you. And like, you never know what you're capable of now. Like, sometimes you can get confined in certain situations. And then when that breaks free, now you're free to become everything that you want to be. And now you can go explore like, who are you now? What do you like now? What is this version of you like? So I kept telling her about this because that is what I did. And that is how I got through a hard time, was just really, I mean, I just felt like my soul was free. I was free to discover who I wanted to be. I was free to try out a lot of different careers. I was free to try out different personalities. Like, all right, I used to not be this kind of person, but am I that person now? I don't know. But so I had to get in the habit of training my mind to focus on the future. And actually, I remember a time during this that I had like mentioned to my dad. Again, it's like an emotional roller coaster. Like some days you're hyper focused on moving forward, and other days the emotions are overwhelming. And I remember going through the process and I was very forward focused. And it takes somebody who is growth minded to consistently be able to focus on the things that they do want. And this takes practice and time and consistency and developing new habits. But so I remember I was sitting, the job that I had at that time, I was 21, I was working at a bank, I was going to school full time and going through this experience. And I remember sending my dad an email and just like just what everybody goes through. And I'm laughing now because of just how different of a person I am. But I remember like crying, sending this email. I was like, am I ever going to find love again? My life is totally over at 21, all these things. And I remember his response. And this is why I love my dad so much, because he's a very simple, straightforward man, but like, he's not afraid to tell me what I need to hear. And he was just like, Ashley, honestly, like you just need to learn to look forward to the little things to remind yourself that you even have anything to look forward to. And that may not make an impact for you. For me, it made a huge impact because it was just like, oh, like I just forgot that there's anything to look forward to because I'm so focused on looking behind. So all I got to do is learn how to look forward and focus on looking forward. And that's what I'm going to create. And I practice this in the most simplest ways. And I remember just like it would be a Wednesday. And I'm like, all right, right now I feel like I have nothing to look forward in life because my entire life is falling apart. It's Wednesday. What can I look forward to? And I was like, ooh, you know what I'm looking forward to? Friday night, I'm going to Longhorn and I'm eating a chocolate stampede and some cheese fries, and I am not going to feel bad about it. And I don't have to work for 2 days. I'm going to look forward to that. And like, even though that's so small, it just got my brain in the habit of focusing on possibilities and focusing on creating what I did want instead of being stuck in the past. And that's the hardest thing, is people get so stuck in focusing on what they do want that they can't find their way out. The way I do this now is when I go to bed every single night. So a lot of times people go to bed and they recap their day and it stresses them out and then they don't sleep well. And then they wake up the next morning in that same vibrational state and they repeat the next day the same as the day before because it's becoming a new habit. So for me, when I go to bed and I'm laying there and I'm about to fall asleep and my day and everything that happened throughout the day is running through my mind, I actually will intentionally ask myself, what happened today that was really good that I'm actually really grateful for? And sometimes it can be really simple. It can be like, you know what? Actually, it was a really beautiful day. Like it was crystal clear skies. The sun was shining. I got to take a really long walk on the water. I saw some incredible nature. You know what? That lunch that I made was so good. And I am so grateful that I have the time to make lunch and have the lunch that I want. I actually had a really great conversation with somebody at the gym, or I was able to talk to my best friend today. Like things like that. And so if you get in the habit of that right before you go to bed of like, you know what happened today that I'm super grateful for? One, it's going to raise your energetic and vibrational state so that you are going to bed with things to be grateful for. Also, it's going to help you sleep a lot better because now your mind is at ease with the conception of, wow, there's a lot to be grateful for. Life is really good. Not just that, you are training your brain to focus on more of what you want instead of what you don't want. So when you wake up after going to bed with that mindset, you're going to wake up then also thinking about all the things to be grateful for of like, wow, I actually slept really great. Oh my God, it's beautiful. Like it's Friday. Actually, it is Friday as I'm recording this. It's Friday. It's going to be a great day. Why? Because it's Friday and the entire energy of the world on Fridays is so much more high vibration because everybody knows that it's Friday and everybody's in a better mood on Friday. So, I mean, little things like that you can get in the practice of. And the question that comes up is people talk about when they have negative people in their life of like, well, how do you handle this if my spouse is negative or my coworker or a family member or boss or whoever? When you are trying to focus on the things that you do want, but you have people in your life that are very negative and low vibration. I mean, obviously, like I've already made it clear, you can change the people that you hang out with. But one of the things that's kind of fun to do, and I've done this with clients and also just for my own, not humor, that doesn't sound right, but more just for my own experimentation is if you want to actually experience the energy shift. And I mean, you can feel it and see it in people. When somebody starts talking about everything they're stressed about or worried about, or the things that are going wrong, or how pissed off and frustrated they are about something, let them do that. And then ask them questions to put them in a different vibrational state. And you can do this intentionally with people. And I've actually done this with people before when they talk about how mad they are about a work situation, or they feel stuck, or they're angry, or they're frustrated. I'll listen because it's a very real reality, but I want them to see a different reality too. And I'll be like, well, okay, so if we could figure this out for you, like what would be your ideal situation? Then they start talking about it like, well, ideally, I would love to be able to make my own schedule. Ideally, I would love to do this. I would love to do that. Okay, so like what interests you in that? And I'm not asking like in a sarcastic way. I'm intentionally asking to help. But also when you do this with people, you can see their energy shift. You can see it. The same thing is true, especially like with friends. So if I have a friend that's complaining to me about another friend, and they're going on and on and on about how much this friend just sucks, I'll ask, I'm like, well, what do you like about this friend? Like, what is it that you actually, why are you guys even friends then? If you hate them so much, or if they piss you off that much, like, why do you like this person? And then you see the energy shift. They're like, well, actually, it's because that person is this or that, or like, okay, well, there's always two perspectives to everything. Focus on what you do want to create, and your own vibrational energy is going to change, which then brings me to my next point, which we talk about all the time, that everything is a vibrational match. You cannot attract and bring things into your life unless you are a vibrational match for it. So when people go through my 8-week boot camp that I had mentioned before, it's 8 weeks of workouts and you have meal plans. But the biggest part of it, and the part that really makes the biggest change for people, is every single week we do something different mindset wise. So like the first week, I'm explaining to you all about this stuff in detail. And then you have homework. I'm like, all right, here's your worksheet. Now you're going to break this down and do it for yourself. Then there's a few weeks where I put you through guided meditations. And then we talk about like your goals and how to work backwards for your goals. But my point in this is with everything being a vibrational match, I don't remember if it's week 3 or week 4 that we do a guided gratitude meditation. The main point that I drive home is in order to have a life that you are grateful for, you have to be able to connect to the energy of gratitude. So we go through this guided meditation where I show you, here's how you have to connect to the energy of gratitude to create the vibrational match to bring things into your universe to be grateful for. We also do a self-love meditation because whether it's love with a relationship, it's love of your life, it's love with your job, it's the love with family, it doesn't matter the kind of love. You first have to be able to connect to that vibrational energy, to the energy of love in yourself in order to attract it. The amazing thing about this is when you do this, the more loving and grateful you are connecting on a daily basis within yourself. And you can do this with journaling, you can do it with meditation, you can do it however you want. The more loving and grateful you are going to be towards other people. A lot of times people in our lives, especially if you got people that are really critical or judgmental, it's not actually you that they're judging. They are projecting the judgment of themselves on you. Some of the most judgmental people I have ever met are also the ones that have the least amount of self-love, because that's what happens is when you haven't learned to love and accept yourself, you don't know how to love and accept other people. So instead, people go around projecting all this lack of self-love on other people with manipulation, with control, with expectations. And I actually mentioned this on a call I had this week is I had mentioned to a client, I said, I want you to, one, get in the practice of learning how to love and accept yourself so that you are not looking for this from people outside of you. But 2, I want you to pay attention when you don't behave in the way that other people want you to behave. Notice how their behavior and their relationship towards you changes. That is how you will know the level of depth and the foundation of your friendship or relationship, because true friendship, true love, true acceptance, and anything that's real does not require manipulation and control. And I mean, that is a truth in life. I don't care what you're doing, whether you are trying to create a business or a job or love or whatever. Anything that is really, really true and solid will not require your manipulation, your control, or anybody else's control and manipulation. And this requires a ton of practice, because a lot of times what happens the second people are afraid of losing something, they immediately try to control it because they feel it. You can feel when you're going to lose something. So you try to manipulate and control yourself by changing your behavior to keep the feared outcome from happening, or you try and manipulate and control others because you feel like you're losing that thing or that person in your life. And I mean, look, I am far from perfect, and this is a daily practice I have to do, and I can always recognize it when I'm doing things from a place of trying to produce a certain outcome. And I feel the difference between allowing and trusting and when I'm trying to control. When I'm trying to control, I'll get frustrated, I get anxious, and I worry. So when I feel myself going into that place and that energy, and then I'm taking action on that, I have to take a step back and I remind myself, Ashley, anything that is real, like truly real, you don't have to control it. It's going to be there without you white knuckling it. And that's the truth. And I mean, I've thought of this too, like with business, when I go through times with business of like, I am taking really hard action and stressing and striving, and then nothing is happening. I have to get to the place and get back in alignment with myself of like, do I actually believe in what I'm doing and that what I'm doing is going to make an impact? And that through that, I am trusting not just myself, but trusting the bigger picture that it's all going to work out. Because if so, then this is not the action I would take, and this is not the energy that I would bring. Instead, I would be coming from a much more grounded, peaceful place with a palm open, allowing things to come and go, knowing that the things that are meant for me and the things that are a vibrational match will stay as long as they need to stay. And that's a very hard thing to do. And I don't know anybody that has mastered it, but it is just a daily practice. And you have to really pay attention and be aware of yourself and ask yourself, am I trying to control this situation? If so, what would I do or how would I act if it was coming from a place of trust and surrender and allowing? And then see if you don't feel your own energy shift when you change from what you're focusing on, things that you're scared of, to the things that you actually want. So going back to really like you getting in the habit of focusing and putting your energy into what you do want, because that is what you are going to create and that is what you are going to expand. Have fun with this. Have fun with any time you are in a situation and you start to put your energy and focus on what you do want, or not what you do want, on what you don't want and the fear, and see if there is not another story that you can create of what you do want. And when I was like writing up notes for this podcast, I was actually thinking about like, all right, let me think of some stories that I have where I've actually applied this principle and it's worked for me. And the first one that came up in regards to relationship was, like I said, it's been longer than 10 years. Okay. So when I was like 20 and 21, the divorce story would be the first one in a relationship situation when it comes to work and business. So here's exactly what happened. So when I first started the Abs protein pancakes, this was back in 2014, and I had no idea what I was doing. The reason I had so much momentum is because I was hyper focused on everything that it could become, that the amount of obstacles and hurdles that I had to overcome to get there didn't really seem that significant because it got none of my attention. But during this process, the hardest part in the beginning, and when I've done talks for people that are trying to develop their own product line or their own business, and they always ask, inevitably, the first question is, how did you even know where to start? And I didn't know where to start at all. I just started like peeling back every layer and trying everything I possibly could, asking everybody questions. I was calling people that I didn't even know you weren't supposed to call. But so I call this one manufacturer, and this part of the story is kind of the short version just to get to my point. But I call this manufacturer out in California while I am living in Tampa. I don't remember how I found this guy. I think I just Googled manufacturers for protein supplements. And I was like, hi, my name is Ashley Drummond, and I have this idea, and I'm going to make Abs protein pancakes and blah, 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 blah. And I could tell he was humored by my innocence. And he was like, honey, when you get to like 30,000 units, you call me back. And I was so frustrated. And I was like, listen, I think his name was Pete, maybe. I don't know. And I was like, Pete, you're like the 10th manufacturer that I have called. I am trying to find somebody who will work with me. I realize that you guys work on 30,000 units, but explain to me how businesses like mine get started if nobody will work with somebody under 30,000 units and doesn't have a bunch of venture capitalist or crowdfunding or Kickstarter campaigns going. And fortunately, he was very helpful. And he aligned me to another guy who, ironically, we were in similar business groups. So we had a lot of very mutual business contacts. And I moved out to California because there were a few potential manufacturers out there. And I was like, you know what? If I'm going to do this, I am all in, just because I don't half-ass anything. So I was like, all right, I'm selling everything. I'm going to California, finding a manufacturer because I want to be right there in it to create and build this thing. And I don't want any reason that it's not going to work because I didn't fully show up and participate. So I go out there and I meet this guy, and he's got his own protein powder line. And so he also was getting started and had to find a smaller manufacturer. So I'm explaining to him the situation. He makes a recommendation for me to use his manufacturer. And fortunately, this company was also brand new, so they were able to work with small companies. So they were the very first ones that I found that could do small runs of inventory for me, and I was able to get things going. So things are going, momentum's going, and here's where I'm getting to the point of the story of you got to find the silver lining in everything that you're doing. So I've been working with this company for like 8 months, and I'm having just so much fun building this. Like the sky's the limit. All I can see is possibilities. I believe 100% in what I'm doing. And I need to make a new order of inventory. And this was actually for Shark Tank. This was because I had found out my episode was going to air. and I had to prepare. Inventory can take anywhere from 12 to 6 weeks to produce. So I was 4 months out and I had to get it going. So I email this manufacturer. I am just over the top excited about this. I'm like, hey guys, I need to do a big order of inventory and I need it done by this date. Here's what's going on. Please sign the confidentiality agreements, all these things. So I send this email. I get no response. Send another email. I get no response. I make like 10 phone calls, leave voice messages. I'm texting. I can't get a response from these people. I am freaking out because now I'm about to have this huge national exposure and I have no idea why my manufacturer's not returning my calls. So immediately I start to panic. At the same time, I call my friend who is also having his product produced by them. And I'm like, hey, I got a question. Have you talked to either of these guys? And he's like, no, I can't get a hold of them. I'm like, shit, man. Like, what is going on? This is a huge problem. So we go back and forth. And long story short, this company files bankruptcy and took both of our money and used it to help pay their other bills. So my friend gets totally screwed and loses money, inventory, all that. I'm also out a manufacturer. And now I got to figure out how in the world I'm going to get product for airing. And it's a total mess. And here's the thing is I remember going down this trail, this thought trail of holy shit, this is it. Like, I almost got in the energetic place of like, I knew it, like I was about to get like a big breakthrough. And then of course something bad happens and I caught myself and I was like, no, not going there. That's not what's happening. Like there's always a way out of these situations. If I choose to believe there's a way out of those situations. And while it was a terrible situation, my friend who's, rightfully so, just pissed off and talking about how he's freaking out too, because he doesn't know how he's going to handle all this stuff. And we were sitting down one day at lunch and I no longer wanted to continue to create a negative outcome or a situation that I didn't want. So I let him finish what he was talking about. And I sat there and I told him, I was like, you know what? I said, you and I are in the same situation and it's pretty shitty. But here's what I have to say about it is one, I know myself and I will figure this out. There's always a way out. Number two, I truly believe that one day you're going to be standing somewhere and I'm going to be standing somewhere making some speech to new entrepreneurs. And this is going to make for a killer story about overcoming obstacles, perseverance, and to keep going even when it's hard. Mind you, I said this when I was not succeeding at all as an entrepreneur, but I chose to shift the perspective because that is not what I wanted to continue to match and line up with, because that could have just created more and more problems and obstacles. And what I wanted to focus on was the fact that I had a huge opportunity coming up. I was moving forward and creating the business that I want. And I chose to believe there was a silver lining that one day I would use this story to help other people, to help keep them motivated and remind them to keep going, even when it feels like the cards are stacked against you. So my point in that is I could have chosen something totally different. Ironically, my friend did not choose something totally different and actually struggled for a very long time in finding a new manufacturer. I found a manufacturer and have had the same manufacturer for the last 5 years that has done a fantastic job for me because I chose to believe in something different than what I was being given so that I could create the reality that I want. The same is true for you. Every situation, good or bad, positive, negative, there's always two perspectives to every single story, and what you focus on will expand. So if you want to stop the train from going down the tracks that it's been on that is not making you happy, you have to choose to believe and see things different than the way that you've been seeing them. This is actually a perfect segue into the other stuff that I wanted to talk about. I know I'm already at 36 minutes, so I'm going to dive right into this. But there's a quote by Albert Einstein that says, "The world as we have created it is a process of our thinking. It cannot be changed without changing our thinking." And this is exactly what I'm talking about. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at will change. So according to quantum theory, there's been a lot of experiments out there just because, and I talked about this actually in the last episode, but this is more just about vibrational matches. So going back, according to quantum theory and the experiments out there, the quantum connection between two particles can persist even if they are on opposite sides of the universe. In other words, something that happens on one side of the world can be 100% connected to something that happens on the other side of the world without either thing being conscious of it, except the fact that they are a vibrational match. So if you don't know what the quantum experiments and all that are, quantum is really just the experimentation and the theory and the science behind energies, the vibrational matches of things, our universe and the world that we live in. So the point of this and why I'm sharing this is because it's just really to further solidify the belief and the idea that your mind is so incredibly powerful. And if you can learn to harness it for the things that you do want, anything is really possible. And where your attention goes, your energy flows. And that is what you create in your life. So I have a super cool experiment that happened to share with you all about mind-to-mind communication, because all these scientists back during the time of Albert Einstein, which is like, this is like early 1900s, but these guys who people thought were crazy scientists weren't crazy at all. They'd figured out the way the universe works, which is why they've made such a huge impact in our history. It's just now our society's so conditioned to believing and following what everybody else does that people have stopped learning to think for themselves and to test limits. So anyway, so there was this experiment to test the idea of thoughts and how powerful they really are and how big of a vibrational impact it can make in people's lives. And this one in particular, I'm just going to read the experiment directly to you because it's so cool and so fascinating. And I really hope that it expands your idea of what is possible and the beliefs behind that. So there's a book called Thoughts Through Space, and the experiment happened in 1937 by an explorer named Huber? I don't really know how you say that. Hubert and Harold, whatever. And these guys were students of mental powers. They had always been really fascinated by the phenomenon and the idea behind mind-to-mind communication, and always had the thought, and I've always had this thought too, like if there's books and studies that have been done on it and like these guys being fascinated by mind-to-mind communication, it means that it's probably happened. It's just people haven't really explored it enough. So anyways, these guys are just like students and complete like obsessive people about mind-to-mind communication, power of thoughts. So what happened is this group of Russian flyers had crashed on some ice on the Alaskan side of the North Pole. So these Russian flyers, they're stuck over on the North Pole. The Russian government calls in Mr. Hubert Wilkins, however you say his name, because he wants to lead an aerial search to find these rescue guys. Well, find the guys and rescue them while they're still alive. Okay. So while this guy, Mr. Wilkins, because I can't say Hubert correct, I think it's Hubert, I don't know. While Mr. Wilkins is being summoned to help rescue these guys, this guy who studies mind-to-mind communication, while he's in New York, prior to his departure to conduct this search to find these people, he met with his friend and fellow obsessive mind-to-mind person, Harold Sherman, and saw this as an opportunity to put mind-to-mind communication to a test. So they decided to collaborate on a 6-month experiment. And what would happen is that once Mr. Wilkins was on his journey and doing this search, what would happen is once it went underway as an experiment, separate from his rescue mission, he was going to telepathically transmit thought messages at prearranged times directly to his counterpart, Sherman, in New York. The deal was the only way this experiment would be valid and be able to be used as proof was that both of these men were going to keep written records of every single session, with Wilkins, the Herbert guy, noting his thoughts as the sender, and Sherman, his counterpart in New York, recording his mental impressions as the receiver. And the deal was that both of these written records were regularly given to third parties so that they could not be altered in any way. Here's what the outcome was. When Wilkins, who was over near the North Pole doing this research doing this search for these rescue guys, while he's in the North Pole, daily sending these mind-to-mind communication thoughts to Sherman in New York. And then they're both writing about, so Sherman's writing about, here's what I received today from Wilkins. And Wilkins is over there, here's what I sent today to Sherman. After they'd write it out for the day, they then pass off these notes to some outsider who is not going to alter them at all. Neither one of them having any communication, knowing whether they're right or wrong or what is going on. So they do this. So Wilkins, the guy that's in North Pole, returns to the United States. At the end of his search, shows his diary and notes of every thought and message he mentally sent to Sherman. And 80% of what the guy received, his friend received, were accurate. Is that not insane? Not insane, actually fascinating. But so these guys test this out for 6 months and all they're doing. So part of this too, like, is they had a deep understanding of the vibrational impact that your thoughts have. And they were a vibrational match. I cannot send, well, I mean, I can, but it might not be received. If I tried to send an energy to you, but you and I aren't matching vibrationally, two things can happen. Either one, it's going to get lost, or two, you're not aware enough to receive it or even know that I'm sending it, that it's not going to matter. So anyway, so these guys are both students of the mind and the power of thought and quantum physics. So they're already vibrating at very high levels to be able to do these kind of things, that when they tested it and they were open to it, 80% of these things over the course of 6 months was accurate. I don't know about you, but I think that that's fascinating. So then I have one more for you that I think is also incredibly fascinating. And to further validate this proof, there was a recent experiment conducted by an astronaut, Edgar Mitchell. Well, I say recent, it was 1971. I mean, it's more recent than like early 1900s. But anyways, 1971, Edgar Mitchell, he established that thoughts could travel at least 250,000 miles because it was the distance from the Earth to the moon. But he tested this out. So here's what happened. While this astronaut was in outer space, he has a doctorate degree in science. He transmitted a telepathic message to 4 individuals on Earth. Out of those 4, 3 of them received the messages correctly. According to this experiment, one of those, the message was received by a guy named Olaf Johnson, who was an engineer and a psychic that lived in Chicago. And at a prearranged time from inside the space capsule, this is like, I love this stuff because I already believe this stuff. And so when you hear experiments about it, you're like, see, I knew it. But so here's what happened. This astronaut Mitchell, while he is in outer space, okay, so he's got no contact whatsoever, he arranged a sequence of cards containing different symbols, such as a cross, a star, a wave, a circle, and a square. Johnson, this engineer and psychic who is in Chicago, tried to picture these unknown cards in Chicago while this guy's in outer space, 250,000 miles away. And not only did Johnson get all of the symbols correct, he also saw all of the cards in the correct order. So if that doesn't convince you that your thoughts and everything is a vibrational match, I don't know what exactly will. So to kind of really wrap all this up and to give you some action steps of applying this to your own life, I'm going to give you a deeper way of thinking of goal setting. So a lot of times people do goal setting and thinking of like, focus on what you do want. It doesn't mean that you lie to yourself and you're like, okay, well, even though I feel depressed, like I want happiness. That's not the way that it works. You have to first vibrationally align with happiness. The way you do that, like I mentioned in the guided meditations in the 8-week boot camp, you have to start to find things to be happy for. You can't align with gratitude coming from a place of lack, of not having. So the way you align with it is you think of things that match that. So one of the things you can do is you can ask yourself, how would you feel if you had the outcome that you wanted? So say the outcome is you want to create your own business and have financial freedom and create your own life and schedule and all of that. How would you feel if you had that? Automatically asking you that question is going to create a different thought pattern in your mind that is going to align you with the vibrational match to that. Same thing in anything else. How would you feel if you met the love of your life? How would that feel in your body, in your mind, in your soul? How would you feel if you found the ideal job? Then you match vibrationally to that. So you have to do this first. It's an energy thing more than a thought thing, is the thing I'm driving home. So you align to this from a vibrational standpoint. Then when it comes to goal setting, traditional goal setting has you just write out things that you want, but there's a huge component of this missing. And this is always like, I relate this back to fitness and why I like decide to do what I do right now is because a lot of the reason people fail, quote unquote, because there's no real failure, it's just processes. But a lot of the reason people don't hit their goals is one, because they're not actually in alignment with what they want. A lot of times their goals are based on shoulds and what they think they should want, but not what actually is going on in their heart and soul. So anytime you're out of alignment, naturally things aren't going to work out because you're not functioning from truth within yourself. You're functioning from something that is a very surface level thing. And the thing that is always going to drive your intention and your action is the deeper part of you that knows who you are and knows what you want. So a lot of people don't hit their goals because the why behind why they're doing it actually isn't that important to them. And so with fitness, when people first come to me and they're like, all right, I want to be 120 pounds, obviously that's women. I want to be 120 pounds and I want to be a size 2 and I want to look like this. And I always ask them, I'm like, why? Well, because that's the ideal body type. Okay, well, why? Like, who told you that? And there's always some story, an ex that cheated on them because that's what that girl looked like, or because in school, like that's the girl who always got all the attention. That's what she looked like. And I mean, flip flop this to men too. It's the same story. So I always try and dig a little bit deeper and say, all right, well, here's what's going to happen is I can 100% help you get to that place. But if that's the reason why you want to get to that place, it's not going to last. You're going to get there and you're going to feel the same inside because you were doing it for something that had nothing to do with you. So what I would prefer we do instead is help you uncover your why. That way we will get to your goals, but also your why is going to keep you motivated and you energetically are going to match with it so that you can create that. And it gets deeper to where, well, you want to feel comfortable in your own skin. You don't actually care about being 120 pounds. You care about feeling good about the way you look. You want to be loved and accepted. You want a relationship. You want to feel good when you're going for that job interview like you're qualified. Really, that's what you want. That I can help you with. But we first have to dial in on what it is that matters to you so that when you have the days that are hard, you have the days that you're not really sure why you're doing this, all you got to do is look at that and it's going to remind you and it's going to create that emotional spark and charge in you to keep your momentum moving forward and to keep you forward focused. So that's the biggest thing with goal setting and why a lot of people don't ever hit their goals is because it's not actually what they want. So it's not a vibrational match. So it's almost like they elude the thing they say they want because there's resistance in themselves behind it. And then they wonder, they're like, I don't understand. Like I keep pursuing this. And the more I pursue it, the further it feels like I get to it. Well, it's probably because there's something deep in you that is probably not in alignment with that. So your pursuit is on false pretenses and really not the intention that you want to bring to any kind of goal setting. So you got to get clear first on that. Why do you want what you want? So once you know what you want, which is a whole other thing. Actually, that was like one of the first podcast episodes I did is figuring out what you want. But once you know what you want, you have to understand the why. Then you have to get to the place of, all right, how would I feel if I had this? And now you're connecting over and over vibrationally, but then the very basic step of writing out your goals. So people don't understand the psychological and physiological impact this makes on you, or even from a quantum perspective, the energetic compact impact it makes on you. For me, I have like 3 to 5 consistent goals, and I'm not talking like anything crazy. It's just a very clear focus on where I want to go. And sometimes I rewrite them out. Sometimes they're in my phone. Sometimes they're in my notebook that I use, my portfolio for what I use on a day-to-day business thing. And it's not because I'm obsessive. It's not because a lot of times people repeat things because they're actually focused on the lack. It's not that. It's because when I see it, when I open my phone, when I open my portfolio, wherever it's at, it keeps me hyper focused on the direction that I'm headed. Not where I've been, the direction that I'm headed though. So every time I see it, every time I write it, I feel it, I know where I'm headed, I know what I'm doing, but I first had to do the work of figuring out the why and match with it energetically and vibrationally. And then now I'm focused on where I want to put my energy because that's what I want to create. So goal setting, that's really the intention behind it. But to expand things and to create the things that you want and to be a vibrational match to what you want, you got to first do the harder part. And yes, it is very hard of even becoming aware enough of what's going on mentally and energetically to get to that place to even write a goal that is in alignment with who you are truly. So I'm going to start to wrap this up, but basically, the more you focus and talk about what you do want instead of what you don't want, the faster you are going to change your reality and manifest your dreams and your goals. If you find yourself in a lower vibrational state or caught up in negative thinking and kind of spirally thinking and all of that, you don't deny what's going on. You shift your perspective. You change the radio dial. You change the TV station. You accept it of like, oh, I see this. Just like I gave in the example with my manufacturer of like, wow, all right, so this is what's going on. You know what though? One day, this is going to make for a really great story. I didn't know I was going to do a podcast at that time. Didn't know that a year later I would be speaking to people, but I chose to believe that. It's the same thing for you. So you have to be able to be strong enough mentally to recognize your thoughts, take a step back, observe them, ask yourself, is this what I want? Is this the direction I still want to go? If not, start thinking about things differently, start seeing things differently, start talking about them differently, looking at them differently, and changing your vibrational state. And ask yourself of like, all right, which direction do I want to head? Okay, I want to be successful. I want to find a new manufacturer. I want to get through this. Okay, how would that feel? Well, it would feel relieved, exciting. I would be so grateful. I'd feel empowered. I would feel motivated. Okay, so what's the goal? Well, the goal is now I got to start contacting new manufacturers. I got to reach out to my network. I'm going to do this within 3 weeks. I'm going to have a new manufacturer and I'm going to be totally fine. That's how you do it, is you got to work backwards. And again, I think it's week 6. Anybody that's in my program right now, you can tell me this. I think it's week 6. Part of the process, we do this exact process over the course of 8 weeks, is like, I want you to get clear on what the life that you want looks like. Next week, what we're going to do is we're going to break that down and work backwards, and we're going to set out very specific goals to help you create that. Then I'm going to show you how to be a vibrational match to that and to consistently move forward in creating the life that you want. But bottom line of all this, guys, is you have to find a way to have a positive outlook and use forward, future thinking language in your thoughts, in your conversation with others, in what you listen to, what you write about, what you talk about, because what you focus on is what you will expand and create in everything you do in life. And I give you the science experiments over and over again to further validate for you that this stuff is real. And last but not least, if you ever need to change the state that you're in, like I said, start asking yourself different questions. Start asking people different questions to get them to shift that. And like, try it out for yourself. Like I always say, nothing is truth until you decide it's truth for you. So don't just listen to this podcast and be like, oh, Ashley's right. Go out and try it out and get in a conversation with somebody. And when they're in like a negative downward thought process, ask them a question about their situation from a different perspective to get them thinking about what they actually do want. And you'll see. And when you see this shift happen for other people, you also start to do it for yourself, and you see the shift happen for yourself, that it's going to make you more motivated and inspired to make these changes in your life to create the life that you want. All right, man, you guys got not a long one, but like you got some stuff today, and we're not even at 8:30? No, just kidding. I can't read that clock. It's almost 9 because I think I told you I started before 7:45. Anyways, if you've not subscribed to this podcast, please subscribe. Like I mentioned at the very beginning, if you are interested in doing that 8-week program and working with me, please go to ashleydrummons.com. You will see where you can sign up for that. Another thing I got for you, if you have specific questions, I haven't done a Q&A in a while. I probably will within the next few weeks. If you have specific questions around anything related to mindset, fitness, goal setting, business, nutrition, whatever it might be, send me a message on Instagram. I am at Ashley Drummons. I love doing these conversations with you guys. I truly do. Like, it's one of the most fulfilling things that I can do in business. So the more I hear from you, the more I know that the content I'm providing is actually helping you. So don't hesitate to reach out and just ask questions and participate, because I love connecting. So, all right. Thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful day, a wonderful week. Go out and create the life that you want, and I will see you in the next episode.